I'm Rachael Jolley. I'm the Environment Editor at The Conversation.
I'm Martin Powell. I'm the Group Sustainability Director for AXA.
Martin, what do you think the role of insurers is in addressing the insurance desert, the areas where people are not taking out insurance or not able to take out insurance?
I think we're seeing more and more places suffering from flooding, extreme heat, extreme events that are affecting society. I think our role is to prevent that, is to come in early, think of long-term solutions that are going to preserve those communities, if not the ones that have already left, the ones that are already under threat and at risk. And so we need to be better as an industry to illustrate those risks and to think about how you de-risk investment in those places to keep them insurable for the long term.
Well, can we talk about particular events? So we recently had a lot of flooding last winter in the UK. Did that highlight to you what the challenges are going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the costs are going up overall. You know, we see the big threats, the big risks costing people more. As you know, insurance is mutualized. It's based on a cost of that risk. So if the risk goes up, so does the cost. And so our job is to try and keep these figures as low as possible. And to do that, we need to invest in adapting existing infrastructures so they are resilient to these long-term shocks.
And in some countries, we've seen government schemes or government with industry to try and address some of the problems here. Do you see those becoming more widespread? Are they being successful, or is it too little for what is the giant problem that we have ahead?
I think there's been long-term focus in the last few years on decarbonisation, and this is right. We should mitigate against the risks of climate change. But we need to think about working with big businesses to support the transition and working with, homeowners, people, just, the rest of us who are just trying to live our lives, and to help illustrate what those risks look like going forward. But we can't do it alone. This is about governments working together, governments working with business, NGOs, illustrating how they can support this. So, one thing I've noticed with big cities is that they have a good governance. You have a mayor, you have long-term planning departments, they have adaptation plans. They're thinking about protecting the long-term interests of that community. For good economic reasons, they are protecting the environmental and social fabric of those cities. And for me, they're working with businesses, they're working with civil society, they're working with commuters, tourists, everybody. So for me, that's the journey now is greater collaboration, greater knowledge, and sharing that information to the wider public.
Is there anything that homeowners can do themselves in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, homeowners are, home insurance is changing. People need to think about how their house is going to be fit for the long term, particularly in exposed regions where extreme heat is going up, where the flooding risk or the extreme weather events are getting worse. We have a Build Back Better scheme, which is really interesting, called the Green Guarantee in AXA France, where we incentivize the homeowner to build back better after a loss, to replace a boiler with an air source heat pump or with solar panels. And I think this is great. But in the same contract, we also recently just added 3 words, which in the event of fire and flood, we offer emergency relocation within 24 hours, right? But the three words we added were in the event of fire, flood, and domestic violence. So it's been a real journey for us to think about what matters now in society, how you protect people as our social fabric is being attacked, as our environmental assets are under these risks. We can do things in those sort of products to help people think about their long-term outlook as well.
And is the bottom line that home insurance for everyone is just going to go up and up in price?
Well, again, it depends. I think home insurance will go up if the risks go up. In the end, you're mutualizing this cost. So our job is to help prevent and show people things that they can do to keep those costs down. The World Resource Institute say for every dollar you invest in adaptation, you get $10 back. So we should be thinking about how we do that with homeowners. What investment do they make today in their property that ensures that those costs remain low for them in the long term? Because if those costs remain lower, then their insurance will be lower. So we need to help illustrate and show those business cases for the future.
Because if costs for home insurance go up and up, of course, it's likely that more and more people will just not take out insurance. And that is another risk that we're talking about here, isn't it?
I mean, it's the worst thing that can happen. I think for us, we want to make sure that these products are affordable and accessible for as many people as possible. And again, to do that, we have to illustrate where those biggest risks are, and before those communities experience the real threat, that we can help introduce the measures. And this is where the community leaders, the mayors, the local government, and the national government need to play a role. They need to assess those risks, like Shanghai did with raising $30 billion to ensure that Shanghai remains where it is. This is good long-term planning. They've calculated all of the externalities that are built into that business case, and they've decided that spending $30 billion now is cheaper than what they'll spend down the line. And that's the sort of scale of business case that's interesting. It's really going to help the whole world keep these costs down.
But of course, governments, local governments, national governments, a lot of them are under financial pressure, and finding that cash to do that advanced planning and take out that infrastructure is a real struggle right now.
A business case is a business case. I think if it makes good sense, investing $1 today and you get $10 back in an adaptation scheme is good business. So, there's lots of ways you can raise that dollar.
Sure, but as a politician, you're probably thinking short term rather than long term, because you're in it for 5 years or 4 years, and you don't know what's going to happen. You'll maybe be out of power in 5 years' time. So,
I don't fully agree. I think, honestly, in my experience working in the mayor's office, of course, they think about what they promised in that first term, but there were many schemes that we looked at for homes, for businesses, for greening our parks, making them safer. All of those things which were never going to be achieved in 4 years, but the politicians committed to the long-term investment in doing that. So. I'm not defending politicians. I'm just saying I think no, but I think it's a bit of a myth when people say, well, they just think short term and it's 4 years. I think honestly, a good leader, especially the mayors of these really big cities, are constantly thinking about the good long-term outcomes for the city.